Good morning, I am Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Got a lot to talk about on today's program, so I'm going to get straight to it. Everyone here and any regular of the program knows Frank Granett. He's a regular. We talk a lot about mental health issues and a lot of emphasis on ADD and ADHD and looking at healthy alternatives to the over-medicating of our youth, which is a pervasive problem, not only of our youth, but adults as well. And we partner on the Price of Business with the Coalition Against Over-Medicating Our Youth, an organization that Frank founded. And we do our regular series, which is the Price of ADHD Business. It's lucrative. A lot of people making money at the expense of a lot of people's, I think, serenity and well-being. Wouldn't you say, Frank?
Oh, that's absolutely true, Kevin. You know, and since you and I began our campaign over a year ago, what's happening across the country, today's segment's no different. We're helping foster children win the ADHD battle, and that's today's segment because I'd like our listeners to understand, Kevin, that there are now in the United States over 400,000 children in the foster care system, and this is a growing problem because what happened back, we need to look at our history and how we can improve and go forward to help these young kids get back on track. And the Government Accountability Office came out and launched a nationwide 2-year drug audit on the foster care prescribing habits of physicians of children in the foster care system. So from 2008 to 2010, the results were mind-boggling. These results, Kevin, came out in 2011. Widespread psychotropic prescribing abuse in our young child population, especially in the child foster care system. So today, what I'd like to do is, we have an expert counselor with us from California. She's received her master's degree in marriage, family, and child counseling. And, what's important, Kevin, is, this particular person has devoted over 25 years to help those disenfranchised young children who are placed in foster care. So today, we're going to get to the bottom of how we can help these kids and that have basically succumbed to a dysfunctional family unit. So Sonya Mohammed is her name. She's an expert with us, a counselor from California. And she has a new book coming up this September. It's called Wake Up and Smell the Cocoa. And this is going to get into the dangers of psychoactive or psychotropic drug prescribing in our youth, especially in the foster care system. And Sonya, great to have you on today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
We are glad to have you on the program. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice.
Well, I for the last 13 years, I have been a counselor / therapist / community liaison for foster youth via Los Angeles County Office of Education. And it was at that time that I was introduced to the epidemic of the psychotropic drugging of foster children. And, of course, in my master's program, we had a whole semester in pharmacology, and so it was my belief that this was the appropriate thing to do to help manage difficult behaviors. It wasn't until I met a Dr. Fred Bauman, who is in Southern California, and wrote a book called ADHD Fraud. In fact, his website is www.adhdfraud.com. And read an article of his that pretty much alluded to the fact that drugging children, as you said earlier, has become very profitable for many people and agencies and public institutions, and that the whole thing of drugging, of diagnosing children with these disorders is a fraud within itself. So from there, I became interested because I saw that many of the children that were on my caseload were on not just one, but several drugs. Most children take at least 3 or 4 pills a day. And that it was reaching farther back into ages such as 1. And I began to question, how can you diagnose, or how can you even test, or how can you evaluate a 1-year-old and make a decision that they are bipolar or what have you. And so as you begin to scrutinize the processes, you begin to see that they don't make sense, and that this whole system is making sense out of something that doesn't make sense.
Sonya, the question, I'd like to have for our listeners to understand, we understand those dangers that are out there, especially with these psychoactive medications in young children, but what are you doing day to day in your practice now to help families? These poor kids are coming from dysfunctional families, and they're placed in foster care. So how do you go about in a short 1, 2, 3 type of step? I know it's not an easy process, but what are you doing that is making an impact over there in California?
Well, I would have to honestly say I'm not certain that it's making an impact. My book that I am in the process of writing and plan to have completed by the end of this month or next month, Wake Up and Smell the Cocoa, is a product that actually I'm selling, but I didn't necessarily want to discuss that on the radio show. But it is a cocoa that is infused with herbs that we're getting reports back from parents who have children with ADHD that it is helping to calm behaviors, it is helping their minds, children's minds to focus, concentrate better in school, grades are improving, behaviors are improving, lifestyles are improving for not only the children and their families, but this was not something I was doing during the time that I was working with foster kids. That situation is very close to being hopeless because it is very systemic. And so one person, one organization, one agency would have great difficulty trying to impact it without the partnership of all involved and all
right.
of the stakeholders.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hey, by the way, would you please go ahead and give your website? I don't think we asked for that yet.
It is www. Javita, J like John, AVITA, .com / Java, like the coffee, JAVA 411.
Okay, go right ahead, Frank.
And Sonya, the time that you spent, especially in Los Angeles County, and you've seen a lot of different cases as far as young children and being displaced. As far as the medication side of it, your book, you talked about, in your book that's coming out, is there any research behind it, or is this just something that your case studies are showing, or, what's going on with that as far as when you're writing it and what's come about?
It is a combination of case studies, and today there is tons of research. When I was first introduced to this tragic thing that is happening to foster youth in America, there wasn't a lot on it, but now there is quite a bit. And this is where I connected with CCHR, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, and they can be found at cchrint.org. They have done extensive work in bringing attention to the community, or bringing the community's attention to this truth that the whole psychiatric testing and diagnosing within itself is incorrect, and then, of course, subsequently following with the prescribing the drugs just as salt to the wound.
Yeah, that's interesting. By the way, we got to wrap it up. I do want to get Frank's final thoughts in just a moment, but I do also want to mention Frank's website, CAOOY.org, CAOOY.org. Frank, why don't you wrap it up for us?
Yeah, Sonya, thanks for being on today, and your input is valuable, and our listeners should understand, and especially in the foster care system in the United States, this is a growing epidemic, and like she said, it doesn't require only one organization. It's a network of organizations across the country that need to mobilize and let people understand and educate the premature use of psychoactive drugs needs to be halted, and we need to find alternatives, especially in the kids in the foster care system.
No question about it. I want to thank both of you. Do want to remind a listener, best content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. While there, like it on Facebook and follow it on Twitter. And this is The Price of Business.